With each new home console generation, developers have become more and more adept at crafting compelling narratives for players to enjoy. This has benefited many different genres, but perhaps none more so than the humble RPG. After all, role-playing games have always relied on their stories to draw players in and keep them playing, and a more immersive and more engaging narrative can definitely help in this regard. The PS5 is home to many great role-playing games, some of which can actually only be played on Sony's latest home console. The best PS5 RPGs find ways to push the console to its limits, providing players with an engrossing experience that is unlike anything else that came before it. What's going on, everyone? Jeffrey here, welcome to Game Rant. In this video, I'll be showcasing the 10 best RPGs to enjoy on your PS5. So let's hop into the list. Number 10, Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. The Like a Dragon series has come an awfully long way since making its debut on the PS2 way back in December of 2005. Despite the many changes that have been made to the franchise formula, though the series' signature goofiness definitely remains front and center, with the team over at Ryuga Studio providing players with weirder and more wonderful adventures with each new installment. This of course bodes well for those with a soft spot for wacky PS5 RPG games. Infinite Wealth builds upon the changes made in the previous title, with turn-based combat once again playing an important role in proceedings. Rather than Kamurocho or Yokohama though, the bulk of the action takes place on the scenic shores of Hawaii, where Ichiban can partake in all manner of wacky side activities, from the creature collecting Sujimon minigame to the Animal Crossing inspired resort simulator Dondoko Island. Number 9, Demon Souls. The idea of a remake of a decade-old game being used as a system-selling launch title for Sony's latest console probably seemed a little strange to some gamers. However, for those who had played the original Demon Souls, the decision to remake it was likely viewed as a stroke of genius, and the end result certainly backs up this line of thinking. The original release helped to lay a lot of the foundations for the Souls-like genre, and served as a spiritual predecessor for the hugely popular Dark Souls series. The Demon Souls remake manages to recapture a lot of what made the original so great, allowing a whole new generation of gamers to experience the From Software classic in a whole new light. Number 8, Final Fantasy XVI. Final Fantasy XVI makes a lot of changes to the series' tried and tested formula, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, in the eyes of many, the game's revamped combat system is a lot better than the ones found in some of the more recent Final Fantasy games, and the decision to stick with just a single playable protagonist arguably made for a much more personal experience. Of course, the game is not without its flaws, with its story dragging on a little toward the end, and many of the side quests feeling like a little more than busy work. Even so, despite some of the RPG elements feeling a little thin, the game is a highly enjoyable one and offers up a fairly decent assortment of side content through the notorious Mark hunts and the side quests that are actually worth doing. Number 7, Horizon Forbidden West. Despite being overshadowed by Elden Ring due to the two titles releasing so close to one another, Horizon Forbidden West is still an excellent game. It does a fantastic job of building upon both the gameplay and the world of its predecessor, introducing players to a wide range of new locations, mechanics, and characters. Although the game's narrative is arguably its biggest strength, that's not to say that a cool concept is all that Horizon Forbidden West has going for it. Combat is fun and varied, map traversal is incredibly fluid, and the many puzzles that players find scattered throughout this new world should provide just the right level of challenge. Number 6, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. When it comes to popular RPG franchises, they don't really come much bigger than Final Fantasy. For years, fans begged Square Enix to remake the series' 7th installment, and at E3 2015, the Final Fantasy VII Remake project was finally announced. The first part of the remake trilogy arrived on the PS4 some 5 years later, with a PS5 version being released the following year. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is definitely the definitive way to experience the first part of that remake, though some series fans may not be completely happy with some of the creative liberties taken by Nomura and company when it comes to the game's narrative. That aside, the combat is excellent, the story is enjoyable, and everything looks fantastic, particularly when playing the game on PS5. Number 5, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Although fans of the original game may take issue with some of the tweaks and changes made to the narrative, even they would find it difficult to argue that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth isn't still a fantastic game. It does a wonderful job of building upon the strong foundations laid out by its predecessor, providing players with a truly incredible experience that really pushes the PlayStation 5 to its limits. The game is chock full of content, with a nice mixture of returning and original story beats to keep players occupied for hours on end. As with Final Fantasy VII Remake before it, some of the side quests can, at times, feel a bit like padding, and the story pacing is a little off in certain places. But these are really just minor quibbles when the sheer quality of the overall experience is really taken into account. Number 4. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 is far from the only fan-favorite RPG to receive a PS5 port. Unlike Skyrim Anniversary Edition though, the PS5 version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt improves the experience in just about every measurable way, helping to provide both new and returning players with an incredible adventure that delivers on just about every possible front. The game's open world is teeming with both life and death, with a plethora of memorable monsters and NPCs for players to encounter. The main story is excellent as well, but it's arguably The Witcher 3's side quests that help to elevate it from good to great, ensuring the game's place among the very best RPGs on the PlayStation 5. Number 3. Elden Ring. Those who have played Elden Ring shouldn't be at all surprised to hear the game being mentioned when it comes to the best role-playing PS5 games. That's because pretty much everything about the game is fantastic. From the lore behind the lands between and those who dwell within them, to the fantastic action RPG combat that's on offer to players. Like in many previous From Software games, players are given an impressive degree of freedom as to how they choose to tackle the challenges that they face. Certain builds can completely transform the gameplay experience, not just in terms of difficulty, but also when it comes to the optimal strategy for taking down some of the game's many powerful enemies. Number 2. Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 is one of the best RPGs of the past decade, if not one of the very best of all time. Persona 5 Royal is an enhanced version of the 2016 classic, with improved performance, new characters, and extra story content. It's also far more accessible than the original game, having been released across 6 different platforms as opposed to just 2. Those looking for a traditional JRPG adventure that will keep them busy for hours on end can definitely find that here, with around 100 hours of content packed into this well-presented package. The game's confidant system serves as an evolution to the series' iconic social links mechanic, while its high school setting provides a certain degree of structure that helps to keep players focused on their goals. Number 1. Baldur's Gate 3. The Baldur's Gate series was always popular, but few could have predicted the success of Baldur's Gate 3. Larian Studios did an exceptional job of dragging the franchise back into the spotlight, ultimately creating something capable of rivaling the original titles developed by BioWare around the turn of the century. As far as Western RPGs go, it's been a while since the world has been treated to one quite as good as this one. Baldur's Gate 3 is easily one of the best role-playing games on the PlayStation 5 and a must-play for both fans of the genre and anyone who enjoys Dungeons & Dragons. It's surprisingly accessible too, so those unfamiliar with the franchise needn't be put off or intimidated. And there we have it everyone, the 10 best PlayStation 5 RPGs. Thank you so much for watching this video from Game Rant. Be sure to check out all sorts of other top-notch gaming content, including more lists, news, reviews, guides, originals, and so much more right here on Game Rant. Have a truly wonderful and happy day everyone. We'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.